Hello, welcome to 52 Weeks Live. I'm Alexa Hampton, and this is a special live with a Brown University friend, an amazing textile designer, Nathalie Farman-Farma, who has just come out with an amazing book, her aesthetic life and fabrics, called backwards, Decors Barbares. And she's connecting right now. So excited to see her. She's a crazy talent. And she's coming. And her book is really, besides being beautiful and atmospheric, and it's shot by Miguel Flores Viana, it also has really meaningful essays at the beginning of each chapter of photographs. So it delves into the history of certain patterns and how they traveled the Silk Road and ended up in various places in Europe, in America, and beyond, with their origins farther east. Now, it says it's connecting, by the way. Oh no, it says she's unable to join. We're going to get this. This is going to happen. But it's really interesting because I'm going to wait to talk interesting points. Okay, hold on. Hi, Yade! Here we go again. I'm going to try it again. I have total faith. I don't know why, but I do. There you are!
Hi!
Hi!
Sorry.
How are you?
Good. Sorry, I couldn't hear you. You were muted. It was a new thing.
Yeah, me muted is a new thing. Some might say miraculous. That is your first stop on the trip to sainthood, right? Don't you have to perform 2 more miracles?
Yeah. So okay,
Anyway,
let me put the.
Yeah. So nice to see you.
Yes, very surreal under these circumstances, but yeah.
You know, maybe because of these circumstances, I think I've gotten much better at seeing so many more people. I usually just, I'm a homebody and see very few people. Now I get to see everybody.
Yeah,
so
me too.
It's
Me
lovely.
too.
Congratulations on the book.
Thank you, Alex.
I'm showing it again. I wore a patterned shirt for you. Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful book, but I love your essays as well. Mm-hmm. They're very thought provoking, and had me going down a rabbit hole, thinking about pattern. Will you tell us about how your fabrics? I mean, I know because I've read the book, but how you first got interested in doing the fabrics and your inspirations.
Yes, it's sort of haphazard. I mean, as you know, I wasn't into design, although I should have known better since all my friends were into design.
Yeah.
And when I married my husband, who's from Iran, I thought I needed some more colorful fabrics, and there were several fabric lines that I absolutely loved, like Le Manac, Castan, right. Robert Kahn. Yeah. But in fact, it was not. This was pre the time now where this is like a renaissance for fabric design. I mean, there's so many great designers and great lines, and I couldn't find the right colors and the right patterns that I wanted for my home. So I thought, let's make fabrics. And it's been I guess
that's a very brave and bold thing to just decide I'm going to do this. And you went and you found a mill. Yeah. And, I have a fabric line, coming up with patterns that are meaningful. It's not easy. It's very patterned.
It takes not knowing what you're getting into, frankly. I think if I'd done more of a business plan and more market research, I might have been scared off. But initially, it wasn't supposed to take off as a big business. It was just, just a project, really. And the more I did it, the more interested I became in the whole business side, and it's totally engrossing, and I found my calling in a way. so I didn't really expect it. I didn't go in thinking this is what I want to do with my life at
Yeah.
all.
You were
Yeah.
suckered.
Yeah, I was suckered. Yeah, yeah.
So you are, which I didn't know. So I know Natalie from Brown University.
Hmm.
She's great friends with Markham Roberts. Weren't you
Hmm.
roommates at Brown?
We were roommates
You were
completely.
roommates.
Yeah.
So I didn't, you seem to me so glamorous and European. I just kind of assumed you were European, and I did not realize. And you speak French perfectly, and you live
Mhm.
in London, but you're actually from Greenwich/Tahoe.
That's well, my mother is very American,
Uh-huh.
and Miguel, who's the wonderful photographer of the book, keeps
Amazing
referring
Miguel
to me
Flores,
as
yeah.
as American. He's like, only an American would go and decide I'm going to do Russian fabrics and make them in
You're
France,
very
and
not
you know, um,
typically American.
well, I've never known, and my kids are now even quarter
Right.
American, quarter French, half Iranian, and it takes several decades of life to realize it's wonderful not to quite know who you are and where you fit in. As a child, you want more definition,
Right.
really.
Right. You want
So
the answer.
I'm French in America, and in France, I'm American.
Yeah.
That's the way it's always been.
So interesting.
Hmm.
Um, yes, neither accepting a dilution of any sort.
Hmm.
Um, Actually, the notion of identity is
Hmm.
very, to me, it was a big leitmotif in the book,
Hmm.
because besides the fact that you do a
Hmm.
biological deep dive
Hmm.
into houses you've lived in, is that so many of the textiles that you love and that you have, that you focus on, whether it's the cloaks, I forget the was it shakan or what were they
Yeah,
called?
yeah, yeah. Chopin's, yeah.
Chapans,
Hmm.
and even those boots that you bought, the
Hmm.
reindeer boots,
Hmm.
they're all about identity.
Yeah.
They
Just to,
are to be seen and read,
hmm.
to because they proclaim who you are, where you're from, what your
Hmm.
status is. It was interesting to think that, how much information is embedded in these textiles.
That's so interesting, Alexa, that you say that. I mean, I was just to say about being having an American mother growing up in France is that I dreamt of having these type of shoes, and I didn't have them because my mother wouldn't buy them for me. And so perhaps I'm a little more attuned to the codes and how dressing a certain way reveals whether
Yeah,
you're in the tribe or
the
outside of the
semiotics
tribe.
of it.
Yeah, the semiotics of
Yeah.
it. Yeah, we didn't go to Brown for nothing. Uh,
There's a word I constantly refer to, and I constantly forget what the word is, but it is a. I'll look it up. I'll look it up later. It's a nostalgia for a history that wasn't yours.
oh, yeah, that's me.
And
Is
it's
it
a
a German
Welsh.
word, perhaps?
It's a Welsh word,
Oh,
and
okay.
I may be getting it wrong, but that's the way I like to define it. And I think that those yearnings,
Hmm.
like if you see these fabrics that have spoken to you forever,
Hmm.
and they proclaim in a language you didn't speak.
Yeah,
They spoke of an identity that was not yours and you didn't speak, but clearly are your identity
yeah,
because you're so drawn to it.
that's right. That's right. And that's where I think textiles, the decorative arts, are so free in this world where identity has become stricter and stricter. That's what's so lovely. I mean, first of all, that's why I sort of go into the deep dive, is that there really is no such thing as one pattern belonging to one person or one thing or one place. It's always traveled, it's always moved. People always love beautiful things, and if your neighbor has it, you're going to copy them as fast as you can. And so I guess that is, in a way, that's like a political statement of mine.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, and sort of a very subconscious reflection on identity is that I think it travels, and I think we are much freer than we think, and we've always been, really.
We're freer but at the same time in the book, you point
Mm,
out how there are peoples living,
yeah,
miles away from it, just a few miles away from each other
yeah,
at the base of a mountain range, who have different
that's right.
religions, different
Yeah,
different spoken words, different textiles, different pigments that they can use in their tribal
That's right.
garb. Do you know where we get the word barbarian?
Yes, I do, because I studied ancient Greek, Alexa.
Yeah,
You know that.
I love it. I didn't remember your date. I didn't realize you studied
Yeah.
ancient Greek. Well, for those of us who,
Mhm.
will you tell everybody? Because it cracks
Yes,
me
so
up.
so barbarian, I think the first mentioning of the word barbarian is in Herodotus, and it's
Uh-huh.
basically anybody who's a non-Greek speaker. And if you know, Herodotus maybe is a little difficult for people, but it's so lovely because anybody who's non-Greek is described as totally strange and having three eyes and
Yeah,
eating, you know, breakfast at lunch and doing everything the
yeah.
opposite as the way it should be done. But but also he's the first ethnographer, so he really describes Egyptians. Describes people from northern climes. He
Mm.
describes, and so barbarian is really the other for the Greek in the Greek
But
mind.
it's onomatopoetic. If you
Yeah.
didn't speak native Greek, all they heard was blah, 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 blah. And that's how it became barbarian, which cracks me up. I was reading
Yeah.
Herodotus
Yeah.
these past few months,
Mhm.
and I had not made that connection. I didn't realize it was that simple. Um, and it's also funny because, as the title of your book and the title of
Mhm.
your textiles,
Mhm.
they're anything but barbaric.
No, but you know, and of course the barbarians were not anything. They were, you know,
Right, they
say
just were that to the Greeks.
yes, and the Scythians and the, you know, whatever, all those cultures were
Yeah,
not at all barbaric. I mean, you know, perhaps they were in some human rights terms, but so were the Greeks. I mean,
yeah.
so is everybody. Um, but it also just, what I like about the word barbarian is that the sort of this otherness that's untraceable. Like I really like to, in my fabrics, have them be, you know, and obviously they're Western made and they're West consumed, but I want them to be slightly untraceable and a little like you don't, you know, they're Russian, but yet what I like about Russian is also you don't really know quite where it is,
Right,
and
so
so
many
it goes
cultures within that one
within that one, and
geography.
it's when you go back to that sense of identity and not really being able to put your finger on it. I quite like that as opposed to the very straight, you know, Indian tree of life or things that we've
Mm-hmm.
seen a lot used in interior design. I think for this age when a lot of us are actually quite hybrid, it's nice to look for, which is why I like the Caucasus and these sort of regions that are always on the periphery and are absorbing multiple cultural influences, and to make design that can kind of slip in. It's strong, but it slips in. It's neither one thing nor another,
Mm-hmm.
and that's always what I look for actually when I just, you know, I don't want something to have such a strong identity that you really know where it's from.
Or that you can't take it.
Make
You can't
Yeah,
use
you
it.
have got to mix it. You've got to be
Yeah.
able to mix it with whatever wherever you are, right?
Um, when I look through the pictures of your houses and the the cupboards
Mhm.
with the clothing and all of your collections, it's almost like, me with my Greek husband. I'm very, and my love of classicism. I'm very on one side of the grand tour,
Mhm.
and I feel like yours is totally a grand tour. It just
Yes,
happens to be the other
the other
way
side.
or
I
further
know.
along. Just watching, connecting all of those different textiles. Can I tell you, I did not know the origin of the word paisley until I read your book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, that it's a Scottish term. Holy mackerel!
It's a
Um,
Scottish town. Yeah.
yeah, I didn't put it together. Um, so somebody's asking where they can find your fabrics. So I mean, obviously you have a website, and if you get the book, you can see the fabric, many of the patterns.
Yeah, I have a website, so decorbarbare.com. I'm really sold to the trade in various cities, which you can find on my website. You can also just email info@decorbarbare.com and we'll help you out.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Um, what does your husband's Iranian heritage bring to this mix? Anything?
I think a lot. I mean, I think that um, you know, I've been married for 20 years now. When I first, ooh, my little, sorry,
You
my little
stand right.
pad. uh, I think that I really got into looking at Persian miniatures, and that's when I discovered these robes. and I'd really been interested in the Middle East, maybe the Near East, not as really as far as Persia, I would say. And what I guess from a decorative arts point of view, what amazed me is how they mixed pattern and how they had, and also if you go to Iran and you see the tile work, and it's so strong and it generates harmony as well. So it's like listening to a different type of, and their music is different as well. It's just a different type of harmony and visual palette. And
a lot of it expresses infinity, right?
Infinity, yes, it's very philosophical actually, and very mathematical, and I quite liked. I guess I look at things is how I design. I like to look at things, whether it's in books or fabrics or travel if I can, and marrying someone from a different culture was, for me, I loved it. I just loved learning everything I could about Iran, looking at all the books, and it jolted. That's sort of what it jolted, and that's how it also brought me back to Russia, because I've always loved Russian things. But then I saw Russia as a country that had been influenced by the East and the West for centuries, in a different way than I was used to seeing. And I think that did it with a lot more I don't know if it's more respect, just perhaps, I don't want to be sort of judgy about it, but in a way that I thought really was exciting. And then I looked at the Ballet Russe, all those costumes, and there's so much visually and it's still relevant, it's still exciting to see how they looked at, because for Russians always had an identity, sort of a Europe and Asia as a country that straddled two continents, and so they've always grappled with this
question. But an identity to the other, you mean to those of us who are not there? Because when you're there, it's so huge. There's so many divisions within it.
Well, they were I think they've grappled with their identity, perhaps in a very interesting way, because it is so big, and what does it mean? And you have so many cultures within it, and there was obviously such a turn towards the West from Peter the Great.
Sure.
But it was very questioned at the same time by people who were looking at their own rituals and cultures, and they had a proximity to the great empires like Persia and China, and so they were really not the same as Holland or Paris, so you had a whole intellectual current which was saying, we are not, we are something, we're more Eastern, or they've reflected on it, and people took different positions. And so it was interesting to sort of look back at that conversation, let's say, that country and culture had. And then here I was, a very Western girl, American and French, married to someone from Iran. And so that's why I think I
that sort of
looked at Russia.
That gives you your passport, right?
Yeah.
It says I'm everything and nothing, and it's available to me to borrow. I also, another thing I found really interesting about the textiles and the interiors, and some of the interiors I would look at, I'm sorry, my phone is making crazy noises. It made me think of some of the Henri Samuel interiors and the style Rothschild and I was thinking, when you think of tribal patterns, tribal in quotation marks, only meaning, peoples, and then your chapter on the peasant blouse and how these costumes of, say, peasantry or less developed cultures then end up appropriated and deposited in these lavish interiors. And what a fun, crazy mix that is. Yeah. And what is that saying?
Well, I mean, it happened at the time. I mean, the great collectors of peasant and folk art were aristocratic Russian people, many women. So it's interesting how
Because so much of it was clothing, no?
so much is clothing, but I think look, a lot, whether it's so many great Russian artists that are men. It's not just women, but I think for women it was an easier thing to do, to collect handicraft and run workshops and
It's like
so
a patronage, a form of being a patron.
yeah
Um,
it's it's always more complex. It's all the reason we have all these documents, by the way, of peasant art and costumes is because wealthy women went out, decided that this was something that they were interested in, and they were going to collect it.
and it's educational. It's history.
That's
It's
right.
living history.
And they realized
it's an
that
intellectual pursuit.
they had the opportunity, and thank God they had the foresight and opportunity to realize that this way of life was disappearing and that it had to be recorded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes me, maybe I was talking to Miguel Flores Viana about this,
Mm-hmm.
about rattan and
Mm-hmm.
Yanyelis.
Mm-hmm.
These
Mm-hmm.
these
Yes,
these
high
very,
low.
very sophisticated people helping those of us who are watching them, following their interests and them being a means by which we can discover, we meaning, me in New York, something that they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you feel most at home?
I think with my family. Yeah.
Safe answer. I like it.
Safe. No. I mean, I'm hoping I'm going to Greenwich for Christmas, to see my mother and sister. I'm, that's provided we don't test positive between now and then. I'm getting really strict.
Yes, as am I. I yanked my kids out of school just for fear of what's going on, and it has not produced a happy home. Nobody's happy with it, but we do what we can. Would you ever live in Russia?
Well, first of all, I don't speak Russian. I do have this fantasy of learning it, and my kids are older than yours, Alexis, so they're almost out of the house. And then I'm like, well, I could actually just go to St. Petersburg and just learn Russian. I mean, why not? Or
why not? I have a love affair with Russia. I love Russian furniture, which is, of course, the antithesis of Russian textiles. But I do love.
Yeah, me too.
Combination is so shocking of the urbane, high polish, plum pudding finishes versus these incredible.
No, but they had great materials. I mean, they had incredible forests. They had the Urals. They had all those stones. I mean, the decorative arts. If you walk, through the Hermitage, your eyes are just popping out of your head. It's just incredible. High or low,
Yeah, and I've never done. So I went to Russia a few years ago, and I was in St. Petersburg, and Moscow. And it's been the first time I went since Perestroika in 1988. So it was amazing and exciting, and it was an adult set of eyes looking at these things instead of my younger person set of eyes. And I'm dying to go back and see dashas. I've seen those things put out for display for us to see. I want to see those intimate moments. I want to see those textiles in place. I want to see that fanciful architecture, which
I know. I follow all these accounts, and I have one. I mean, I have a friend, Fulberinsky, who's like a fashion designer and now gallerist, and it just is just. There's so many villages, and there's a lot to see there that I hope I can go visit.
Yeah,
the same
with like an art historian and have them.
Well, I think it's a decrepit state. I mean, I think, Russia's a poor country, and it has this incredible wooden architecture, which is not which needs to be. I mean, I think there are a few towns that are being preserved, but a lot of it needs support.
Yeah, so we should go and support it. I'll
We
go
should
with
go
you.
support it.
I'd
Yeah,
love
we
to go
should go
with you.
support it. Yeah.
So talking about architecture of those dashas then brings us back to your house in Tahoe, which is very timbered, and it's like a luxury dasha.
Yes, yes.
And did your family just let you go to town on it, or did it always look like that?
It's sort of a mix. I mean, no. Some of it was there before we photographed it. So yeah, so some
So
of
a
it
lot
is.
of the seedlings of your style are
Yes,
there.
absolutely. I mean, I would say it's one of my favorite places in the world. And to me, there is a connection because I have a very slow life when I go there, which is that I basically read and eat, and I have the weather in California is basically perfect. So if you grow up in France and you summer in California, it's
It's
just
paradise.
it's paradise. There's never a rainy day. It's cool at night, so you make fires, you hike. The nature is breathtakingly beautiful, and it's very, the ecosystem actually that between Western United States and Russia is the same. It's the same forest. It's the same, it's so there is a connection there to this sort of very, and also wilderness. Like in Europe, there's really not. I mean, in Western Europe, there's really isn't the sense of wilderness which you have in America that I miss so much. Which is that you can be walking somewhere and nobody's been there before. And I also love the Alps, but there's not.
It's different.
It's different. It's different. So it's true that the Russia side is more connected to my American side. Ironically, it's about these big trees, these forests, this life.
And folk art, native folk art.
Folk art, yeah.
Something you just said rang a bell when you say when you go there, your life is very slow, and it makes me reflect upon the fact that a lot of the textiles that you love are the product of a slow life, because they're deeply intricate. Or your mother quilting, the time and the space you need to create these textiles in that era in which they originated. It's such an interesting balance between I'm so slow that I can do this incredible handiwork. So maybe that's part of it too.
Well, I like timeless. I think luxury to me is being able to spend time in a place that's quite authentic, and so it's true that things are then local made or handmade or I don't know. Now I've kind of lost my train of thought, but
but slow. They come to a slow boil.
It's a slow, we can have slow food, we can have slow everything, we can have slow decorating, slow decorating. Yeah.
I as I'm sure you were, deeply concerned earlier in this century when a lot of fabric mills went out of business.
Yeah.
And the first things to go were the patterns. Yeah. And I grew up going to shopping for fabrics, and all of those beautiful documents started disappearing under the weight of the need for beige chenille, and it got very, very scary. It felt like things were gone forever, and I'm so glad you are doing what you're doing right now, because thank heavens the appetite is back. Because without that appetite, where do you you can't sustain it.
Well, it's an ever-growing field, actually, Alexa. I think people like to have a more personal product when it comes to their fabrics, and it's a way of expressing yourself, fabrics, and in France, you're called a fabric editor. You know, it's like
Mhm.
books. You know, you have your collection and you have your vision, and it fits into a certain thing. And people like having there's so many men, but a lot of women who have fabric lines who have very distinct taste and style. And I think people like to have fabric that has a story, that has a point of view more than before. I think we took it for granted, maybe, and now we don't.
Yeah, and now we're holding on for
Mhm.
dear life because it's an interesting thing. You want to find a marketplace, a large
Mhm.
marketplace, to sell deeply personal fabrics,
Yeah, but the
which is
marketplace
which is
is
an oxymoron.
no, but the marketplace is bigger because of the internet.
Oh no, no,
Is
I mean
yeah,
no. It's just you have to spark that interest in people
that's right.
to
But I
be
think
individual.
but I think it wouldn't be possible without this global, without Instagram, for example, and without
Yeah,
the fact before there were barriers, you just had to
yeah.
go through various people and you weren't able to kind of shop for fabrics all over the world or through the eyes of all sorts of different people.
Yeah.
And now with the internet, you can Google all these great rooms. You can
I'm always
see.
like Uzbek pillows
Yeah.
on
Is that
Etsy,
what?
and it yields wonderful things.
Is that your Google history? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Some people have porn. I'm like
Yeah.
Uzbek pillows.
Yeah. Me too.
Somebody is asking you to share some good books that you would recommend to educate themselves about fabrics and textiles. Any good, just like
Oh, well, Susan
I mean, there
Meller,
are a bazillion.
yeah, they're a bazillion, but for the line that I do, Susan Meller, who now I can't remember what she used to run, but she did Russian printed cottons, and then she had another one on fabrics of Central Asia, and they're beautiful books.
And you also use show some bookcases in your
Oh yeah, I
book.
have.
And
Yes,
I
they're
was
behind me.
poring over the
Yeah.
spines of the books, like, ooh, I don't know what that is. What's that?
Well, I love, I'm a library rat, so I really now, unfortunately, that's kind of gone, but you could really go and find all these old, people would have online all these old books. And I would say two of my patterns are from the spines, the fabric that covered the books.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, you can troll around the internet and find
I mean,
incredible
that's what the
stuff.
internet is for.
Yeah,
It's
that's
for
right.
trolling.
It's for
It's for
trolling.
trolling.
Yeah.
Um, I also want to ask you, there's an interesting part in your book about red matter and the
Hmm.
MADDER and
Hmm.
the pigment. And
Hmm.
I always have thought as a child of Europhiles
Hmm.
that, blue was
Hmm.
the really, really expensive pigment. And you go to the
Hmm.
Arena Chapel in
Hmm.
Padua and,
Hmm.
that ceiling is so incredible. But it was interesting to hear about the red pigment and that
Hmm.
you couldn't get the turkey red that
Yeah,
you wanted. So I'd love for you to tell that story because it was really interesting. And it just shows, it expresses such um, it shows you how fashion and technology
that's right.
fuel, die or breathe life into these endeavors.
Yeah, I think that there are quite a few books on color and the history of color and pigment. And red was available, but it wasn't really washable. And so sort of a color fast red that you could wear and wash, when they were able to manufacture that in a commercial scale, then it became the craze. I would say, let's say it's around 1820, and then they refined it, which is why it's in the American bandana, it's in all these folk costumes from all over the world. And you realize that fashion follows technical,
Mm-hmm.
innovation,
Industrial, yeah.
industrial innovation, and also the chemical industry, because the Rhine at one point was called the Red Rhine, because when they discovered this process of being able to dye fabric, they would, in order to have this color fabric, you'd have to dye the whole cloth red and then bleach out spots and then print on top of it. You couldn't just add the red in
No,
spots. So
dyed in the wool.
yeah, dyed in the wool,
Dyed in the
exactly.
wool.
So the Rhine was called the red wine, and you go all the way from oh God, now I can't remember where, St. Gallen, right, all the way down to all the towns along the Rhine were had textile, then all on to the textile industry.
I, I just love that.
Yeah.
It's also logical, and actually, when you're talking about the Silk Road and the spice trades,
Yeah.
that also has everything to do with pigments and traveling
Trade and
culture.
ideas, and exactly,
Yeah,
fabrics are the history of fabrics is just so, interesting and relevant to everything, because it's a big part of the life of a human being, fabrics.
yeah, yeah. It's part of essential equipment,
Hmm.
like food.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
you can tell where somebody comes from by what they cook. You can
Hmm.
tell that I come from a land of barbarians because I can make ramen. But yeah, that's it's a never-ending story that will never go away.
Hmm.
Um, how do you? Okay, so one of the beautiful things about your interiors is the mix,
Hmm.
and people. That's where people are most afraid. They're
Hmm.
afraid of mixing scale, small scale and large scale and middle scale all in
Hmm.
the same room. There's a room in your book.
Hmm.
Um, obviously, it has to be yours that has all this pattern, but it's just like, here, I'm coming to it. But it's so perfect. I can't stand it. Um, what, what, how do you encourage people to do that with confidence?
Hmm. I think people have to not be so hard on themselves, because I've done many rooms. I'm not a decorator like you, so I've only worked for myself. So already the pressure is off. But you think, I'll get the couch and the room will be done, and then the room looks even emptier after you've put the couch in. And then, once you have the couch, you have the this and the that, and it takes time.
Yeah,
You just you and it's like climbing a mountain. Like, there are multiple paths. Like, if you find the room is
something
too
I don't
blue.
want to do. You can do that yourself with your hiking
Yeah.
trails.
So I think you have to just start with something that you really like. And that is the key, is really liking it and really having a connection to a design or a fabric that you really want to have.
Yeah.
And then everything, it's like
So that
cooking.
takes us back to slow design,
Slow
because you're saying
design.
layer it, layer and layer and
It's like
layer.
a stew. It's a little too much salt, then you've got to add a little water, then you've got to, you can correct. Like, if you feel like you bought a couch and you bought this blue fabric and it's too blue, you can put pillows on it. You can put something else around it. So and actually, that's what's great about pattern, is that oh yeah.
This just makes my heart sing. Oh, look at your lampshades.
I know.
Okay, sorry, I just had to fangirl for a minute. So, so again, that's like antithetical to the decorating process. I mean, it's great if you're a wonderful decorator and you hire a wonderful decorator and they can
Hmm.
do that layering process for you.
For
But
you.
if it's personal, it does take time.
It does take
It
time.
is.
And my lampshades, by the way, I made them for another. I move them around. I mean, I'll get a new lamp, and so I think it's just this idea that one thing is for one spot. No, it's
Yeah.
not. Actually,
Your
it's
interior is a living, breathing
and it's moving.
thing.
It's fun, actually. The most fun thing is to put something in a different place, and to so if you have a lot of pattern, actually that is easier.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I think also a lot of dense pattern
Yeah.
functions like a solid.
Yeah.
So and it also we don't if we're lucky we're collectors and we have
Hmm.
artwork to hang, but you don't want to go out and just buy a bunch of artwork and hang it. I
No.
mean, that's so insincere. And though if you are going to do that, to anyone listening, I would happily help you. but, but if you have a lot of pattern on the wall that's beautiful, that engages you, that speaks to you. And I'm almost thinking of Diana Vreeland's
Yeah,
interior. Um, it takes the heat off of the need to get the artwork
totally. It's
at one
cheaper in
time.
the end. It's cheaper in the end because it's
That
true
wasn't
that,
really the message I was going for, but okay,
no, but
cheaper.
it's uh, well, I think it is because you get fabrics have a lot of personality. So, and they bring a lot of all the texture and all the things that a great piece of art brings into a room. Just a lot of, I would say it brings conversation, like something great brings conversation, but a
Yeah.
lot of pattern and beautiful rug will do that too. And then so I think yes, we can't all have incredible art to look at and fabrics
They inhabit
create.
it. The
Yes,
rooms
yeah,
are inhabited even when they're
yeah,
empty.
yeah.
There's something, sorry, that you wrote that was so pretty in your introduction. I loved it. You said, with hindsight, I can see that I was always sensitive to the power of atmospheric
Hmm.
rooms. And if that isn't my call to arms,
Yeah,
I don't know what is. Like, it's not the decor necessarily, it's the atmosphere that results from the things that you're talking about.
that's right. And that's really what I look first of all, I think it's a gift to give that in your own home to people that are coming, people really appreciate coming into a home that's personal and atmospheric. And it's not necessarily what they want in their own home, but the experience of coming to dinner or just spending time in a home that has a lot of personality is really enjoyed. And I've enjoyed it in other people's homes. And then when I travel, that's what I look for. I mean, um,
So when I look at your line, which I adore, obviously it can you can decorate with it. You can do the lampshades, you
mhm,
can do the curtains, you can do the walls. I love the portieres that you do
mhm,
that are
mhm,
very Castangian.
mhm,
And I loved your chapter on Madeline Castang and
mhm.
David's. Um, uh, I feel that you now need to. Oh wait, you're frozen. Unfreeze. Somebody calling you?
Oh no.
Hold on, you're coming back. Okay, I have. Okay, I'm about to tell you what to do, so you have to come back. What I need you to do for myself, selfishly. Natalie. Natalie. The little thing is going round and round. Should I hang up on you and call you back? Okay, what I was going to say, which I hope you can hear me. Oh, you can see her? She's not frozen? Yes, that is the word. Um, yes, that is. I don't know how to pronounce that Welsh word, but Winton, that is the word. Um, Natalie, Natalie, I'm going to hang up on you and try you back. I'm not going to hang up on you, but I'm going to try you back. Where'd you go? Remove Natalie, and now add Natalie. Okay. Send request. Um, Hopefully we're connecting. I don't know why she was frozen on my side. Because I have this big question for you, Natalie. I know you guys can see her, but I can't see her. This is terrible. Natalie, I hung up on you and I'm trying to reconnect. Somebody says she's blocked me. Yeah, I can see the messages. Oh, Arabelle. I'm not going to ask the big question until I can get her back. Natalie, you're requesting you. Sorry, guys. By the way, while we speak, it's like the heavens are about to pour. There you are.
Sorry.
Hi.
Yes, I'm by the internet. I mean,
Apparently, I'm the only one who saw you frozen, but now I can't see your face. So my big question for you is, I look at your interiors and I aspire to them and they're beautiful, but now I need you to do rugs. No, seriously, they're a potent part of the mix in your interiors. And there's the bakshayish, or at least what I think is a bakshayish, in one image that I want immediately. Would you do that?
maybe carpets. Yeah, I mean, you
Yeah.
have to make it so that it's not more expensive to make new than it is to buy old.
True, but you'd get them in better condition and you'd get them custom sized, which is
That's right.
what people need.
Well, I haven't thought of it, so
yeah. I mean, seriously, it is everything about your fabrics can take care of every other part of the room. But in all of these rooms, with the exception maybe quilts, maybe you need to do quilts too. I would buy quilts from you in a second. I love quilts that are, Bill Blass was a huge influence on me, and on so many of us. We just love his. I don't know if I should say he's an influence. I'm a fan of his work. I could only wish that he were an influence. But when I look at all of these rooms of yours, the one thing that we're missing that we can't get from what you're supplying is rugs.
Oh.
Maybe needlepoint, maybe whatever, but so will you promise to do that?
I will.
Oh, and lampshades. You need to make custom lampshades.
Oh,
quilts.
Too
much?
They have their own lampshade.
Okay. So
ask you.
all right, then rugs. So you're promising to do rugs.
I will.
So we will put this out into the universe, and somebody who makes beautiful rugs that understands this beautiful aesthetic is going to reach out to you. Oh, somebody just said, DM, my husband is an executive in a product development for rugs and carpet. Tracy Lynn McLeod. Thank you, Tracy Lynn. We need to get Natalie doing rugs so we can totally copy her interiors, or at least so I can.
Thank you.
What's next for you?
I think more of the same. I think maybe a few collaborations and grow my line a little bit. Yeah, I guess slow business, slow decorating and slow business. Nothing too big.
Joyful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
So much fun, and hopefully.
And the book, it really is. I know it's backwards, everybody, but it's Decors Barbares. And it's so beautiful, and it's so thought-provoking, and it's so great to see you.
Thank you. Thanks, Alexa, and thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Yes, thank you. All right. Lots of love and kisses, and I'm sorry I had that technological problem.
Yeah. Okay, bye.